I'm not going to be the smartest, but I could be the hardest working because that's just a choice. And if you always worry about money, you'll never have money. And if you always complain about X, you'll always have X going on in your life. You have to focus on what you want. So what you think about will come about. Everyone's got greatness in them. They have purpose. You just have to pull it out of them. As long as you don't quit, you only lose once you quit. When you give up, that's when you lost. As the grandson of immigrants, I'm sure they in their wildest dreams couldn't have dreamed that their grandson would be the mayor of the city of Niagara Falls. This is the greatest country in the world. You can have anything you want. You can be anything you want. Just make sure you leave it better than when you got here. That's your obligation for the people coming behind you.
Welcome back to the Canadian Dream Podcast. This is our first episode in 2025, and we're starting with a very special episode recorded here in Niagara Falls, Ontario. We have the Mayor of Niagara Falls, Jim Diodati, on our podcast. Welcome, Mayor Jim Diodati.
Thank you for having me, Alta.
How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm doing very well.
Thank you so much for making the time to be here. One of the things that I really want to talk about today is time management. Because you never stop. You're everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah. You have been the mayor of Niagara Falls since 2010?
Yes. Yeah.
How did you get elected and reelected so many times? Who are your voters?
Well, clearly they're very desperate and they're not good judges of character. I got to say, I think the main thing, if you decide to go into office, you need to understand it's called public service. You're there to serve the public. You work for them. You need to be humble, self-deprecating. Take your job serious, but don't take yourself serious. Some people, one of my mentors, and this is one of my advice to anyone is have mentors. Have lots of mentors because you don't need to learn everything the hard way. You can learn a lot of things the smart way. And one of my mentors said before, if you want to know what a person is truly made of, their essence, you give them money or power. And it said, doesn't change them. It uncovers who they really are, makes them more of what they are. So if they're nice, they become nicer. If they're a jerk, they become a bigger jerk. You have to want to help people. So for me, I would do this job for free if I could. Now I can't because I've got 3 kids and they're in school, but I would. And I mean, I've, turned down some very good private sector opportunities. My background, I worked for myself for 25 years. I'm an entrepreneur and I treat this job like it's my own business. If I see garbage, I pick it up. If I see a burned out sign, I call staff. If something isn't done right, I'm 24/7. I can't ever shut it off. And I love it. I'm passionate about what I do. And I'm lucky because the people, they gave me a chance. And when I first, ran for mayor, I put a 10-year business plan together. I did a SWOT analysis, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. And I was very honest with what was good and what wasn't good about the city, what was right, what was missing. And I realized to get some big things done, like building a new hospital, which we're building right now, $3.6 billion hospital. You don't do that in 3 or 4 years. I've been at that one for 12 years, 13 years. It's a long-term commitment and it's small, short, medium, and long-term goals. So I put a business plan together and I said, it's going to take some time. And I had one of the people I ran against said, well, that's arrogant. 10-year business plan? You think you'll be around for 10 years? And I said, no. I said, this is my gift to the city. I said, I did the heavy lifting and I did the research. This is the roadmap to success. You can run with it. I would love to be the one to implement it, but this is my gift to the city. And so I think it's things like that. And why are you doing this? It can't be about you. It's got to be about the city. First, you have to identify the problem you're trying to solve and then come up with a plan to solve it. So that's what I did. I tried to stay in regular communication with the public, very active on social media. I'm always out in the public and I'm listening. I'm on that journey of checking all the boxes to make Niagara Falls a truly great city. And I say, we're a good city and we can be even better. And I've got a great team on city council that I get to work with every day, an amazing staff.
What makes a team good when working in the public sector?
First thing is, it's got to be fun. They're spending a third of their life working. So are they part of do you sell them the dream, the vision? What are they a part of? Are they just pushing paper? Are they just what? How does it tie in? Think of it as a hub with spokes. What's their role and what's the outcome? Sell them on the vision, the 10-year vision of we're going to get a hospital. We're going to bring the GO train to Niagara Falls, which we also did. We're going to attract a university to Niagara Falls to attract and retain youth, which we did. And they realize they're hands-on. They're participants. They're not spectators. They're a part of fulfilling the vision and the dream of Niagara Falls. So number one is make them a part of things. Number two is help them have fun. No one ever said that work had to be miserable. When I hear some people, oh, I can't wait to retire, they do the countdown to retirement, and I think, that's so sad that they can't wait to quit what they do for a third of their life. They should love it. You know what I always say? There's no us and them. There's just us. There's just us. And I don't care if you're part of a union, you're part of management, or you're elected. We're all the same, just doing different jobs. And once you take ego out of the picture, I'll tell you, it really helps you to connect with people. And I think sometimes people start thinking that it's all about them. And when ego kicks in, then you got problems.
You know what I find funny is that the longer you do something, the more cynical you become. You actually don't sound cynical at all, right? It sounds like this is your first term, your first year.
I'm like a kid. I jump out of bed to do my job. I love when I have calls, when I have fires to put out, problems to solve. I embrace the challenges. I think it's fun. I love the journey. And I'm not cynical at all because I'm a cup half full kind of guy, like that is more than half full. I'm all about positive reinforcement, pumping people's tires. There's a word I learned at one of my mentors, again, I'll often refer to my mentors, and the word was edification. So to edify someone is to build them up. And you pump their tires and you build them up. And you know what they do? They live up to your expectations. So if you build them down and cut them down, they will live down to your expectations. And people got greatness. Everyone's got greatness in them. They have purpose. You just have to pull it out of them. Not everyone is born with it. And I tell you, myself, growing up, I was unremarkable. I was a very average kid in every way.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you. So what kind of childhood did you have? And were your parents Italian or born in Canada?
They were born in Canada, but my grandparents on one side, my dad's side, were Italian, or from Italy. And on my mom's side, were from Poland and Ukraine. So I'm a combination.
Close to me. My mom's side is Italian. I actually have an Italian passport.
Oh.
And my dad's family is from Germany.
And my grandparents, they didn't have too much. They came here and they started with nothing and built their families. But one thing they had was a lot of love. And my dad was the youngest of 9. My mom was the youngest of 5. And we always had great family gatherings. And there was always lots of food, always lots of laughs and lots of love. And we didn't have a lot, monetary and material things, but we just really enjoyed life and we loved whatever we had. And this is part of life. You have to be grateful for what you have rather than desiring what you don't have. Because, you know, there's a saying that what you think about comes about. And if you always worry about money, you'll never have money. And if you always complain about X, you'll always have X going on in your life. You have to focus on what you want. So what you think about will come about.
And what did you learn from your parents?
So hard work, your reputation is the most important thing you have. Handshake, a deal is a deal. Honesty, love, standing up to bullies. You don't get pushed around by anybody. You know, my parents would say things like, don't ever start a fight, because if you do, when you get home, you're going to be in big trouble. But don't ever walk away. And what they meant by that was, one of my friends said, yeah, what the message was, if someone, don't ever hit anyone, don't ever start anything, but if someone hits you, you hit them back twice as hard so they know you stand up.
So don't ever start a fight, but always finish it.
Always finish it. And at least they realize this won't be easier, and bullies prefer pushovers. Bullies prefer easy victims. And when they realize you're too hard, they'll move on. They don't want to deal with you.
And when did you find out that you wanted to become a politician?
You know, I never wanted to, but it's funny.
You were born here in Niagara Falls. It was a small town.
I was born in Niagara Falls.
What's the population? Sorry.
Here we're 100,000 now, just over 100,000. And then in high school, I was a bit of a late bloomer, but I started to bloom and come into my own and a little bit of confidence and get involved in some sports. And then at one point, I remember in grade 11, you know, I just started to apply myself in school. I went after school for some help. I had some great teachers that spent the time, and I was missing some simple key concepts. And all of a sudden, it was like the Matrix. And then I started to get good marks. I started to get much better marks.
And what do you think changed in that moment?
I think it was going for some extra help and some good teachers that cared, that would stay after school or come in early or come in at lunch and just help with a little bit. And it gave me confidence to do more And then it just kind of was a self-fulfilling prophecy of, I can do this. And then I remember my physics class, my first term, back then it was terms and I went to semesters. I remember my first term, I had a very low mark in the 50s. It was a terrible mark. And then I started to go after school for some help with my physics teacher. And he started to point things out to me. I started to understand. So my second term, I had an 80. And then my third term, I had the highest third term mark in the class. And I wasn't the smartest, but I was probably the hardest working. And that's one thing I realized, that, I'm not going to be the smartest, but I could be the hardest working, because that's just a choice. Being smart, hey, you're born with a certain amount of genetics, certain amount of smarts and athletic ability and everything else. But perseverance, you can teach that to anyone. If you want something bad enough, you do it. So luckily, I had some great mentors, Elton, and I realized. So then I ended up running for student council. I became president of student council, and then I went off to university, and I did no politics, and I started to become an entrepreneur. My first year of university, I was part of a university franchise painting. It was called College Pro Painters. And I got the franchise in St. Catharines to Stony Creek, where we painted hundreds of houses, interior, exterior, commercial. I had 4 crews going full-time all summer.
How old were you?
I was 19.
Did your parents help you with it?
Yeah, so that's another great question. So I was too late to get the student venture capital loan. So I had to go to my parents, because I needed $3,000 to buy a van, to buy some painting equipment, and start my business. And I remember going to my dad. Dad, what do you think of this? It says you can make $10,000 in a summer. This is 1984, 85.
It's like 50,000 now.
Yeah, oh yeah. And I said, he goes, 10,000. He goes, how much do you make now? And I worked 2 jobs. I said, I made about $1,600. He goes, have you ever painted before? And I said, well, I did the picnic table. And he goes, no, painted. And he goes, have you ever run a business before? And he said, so you're asking me for a loan to start a business in an industry you've never done before? He said, is that really a good idea? And I said, Dad, I think I could do this. So
and find the right mentor.
Yeah, well, and you know what? And my dad was one of my very first, he still is one of my mentors. My dad's going to be 83 this year.
Where was he doing that?
He was a corporate executive in Toronto.
Okay.
In the food business, in grocery.
So white collar.
White collar. And yet he just had high school education, but he had this fire inside of him, and competitiveness and perseverance and hard work. He was not afraid of hard work at all. Neither of my parents. They're both hardworking in different ways. Very, disciplined. And so my parents agreed, but reluctantly, to give me a check for $3,500. And they're like, you treat this with respect. So I'll tell you, I started doing the business, and when I hit a point when I knew I was in a good spot, 6 weeks into the summer, I go into their bedroom. I remember it's a Sunday morning, and I give them the check, and I calculate, because interest rates at that time were in the 20%. Yeah, oh yeah, I had a Canada savings bond. I was getting 19.5%, and so I calculated the interest. Had they left it in the bank, I wrote them the check with the interest, and they're stunned. They're looking at me, but they knew I was out the door early morning, coming home late at night. I worked so hard, and I gave them the check, and they said, and then my mom, who was reluctant to give me any money, said, maybe you should hang on to it a little bit longer. I said, no, I'm done. I'm good, because I didn't take a nickel out of the business. I thought my first goal, got to pay my parents back, number 1. Number 2, I got to pay off this van. I got some equipment to pay off. And once I felt comfortable, and that instilled a confidence in them that maybe they did a good job. Like, maybe I figured a few things out. Yeah. And then it changed our relationship, because I don't want to take. Help me, give me a hand up, not a handout. And so they gave me a little hand. And so I'm quick to give people hands up. I mentor people. I want to help them. If they don't have a mentor in their life, I want to show them I'll be one of many. And a mentor can be a barber, could be a teacher, could be a brother, sister, uncle, neighbor. It could be anyone who's got wisdom in life.
So how many siblings do you have?
I've got 2 brothers and a sister.
Where are you? Are you the oldest?
So I'm the oldest of 4th. And then
So you set the bar pretty high.
Well, I don't know, but my next brother's 16 months younger. He became a Toronto police officer at 18. So he moved to Toronto when they had a cadet program. So he's driving the Harley Davidsons, in downtown Toronto. So he was gone, and he was married by 20. So everyone assumes he's older than me because he started earlier. And I was out trying to do the entrepreneurial thing. Then my next brother became a teacher, and then didn't like that, became a police officer. Now he's the deputy police chief of Hamilton. And then my sister is 16 years younger than me.
Yeah.
So I was in grade 11 when she was born. So there's the four of us.
So after the painting business, how long did it take for you to get into health and wellness?
It's funny, if I can just digress on time management first, because it led me to this. So my first summer of College Pro Painters, one of my mentors, his name is Mark McKenzie. He's one of the vice presidents of College Pro Painters. And he said to me, he goes, can we meet? I'm a little concerned about you. And I'm thinking, he's concerned? Why is he concerned about me? He said, I'm worried about you having manager burnout. I get burnout. I'm 19. I'm not going to burn out. And so he said, I want you to bring your day planner. And I wasn't using a day planner. He must have figured out I wasn't. And I said, is that the book with the calendar in it? He said, yeah, that's the one. So he laid it out week at a glance. So now today, you got your day planner on your device.
Little calendar.
Yeah. But so I laid out a week in advance. And he goes, all right, we're going to plan your summer out. I said, okay. He goes, now, we're going to start with what makes you happy. He goes, what does Jim Diodati like to do? And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, outside of work, what do you like to do? I go, well, I like to go to the gym. He goes, how often? I said, 3 times a week. How long? 90 minutes, and he goes, okay, when? Well, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe. Okay. We booked the time off in the calendar and some travel time, shower time. And I was like, yeah, but what if he goes, don't worry, we can move the time, but we dedicate the time. What else makes you happy? On Sundays, I used to like to go to the beach. All right, put that in. What else? Maybe I'll have a date one night, It's a good week. And what night? I said, Thursday? Okay, put that in. What else? We got to the point, I go, there's nothing else I like to do. That's it. He goes, all right, now we're going to plan your work. It was the exact opposite, like many things I learned in life. It was the opposite of what I assumed.
Yeah.
So now he goes, well, I'll tell you why. He goes, so now if you get all these things for you personally in, you're going to be happy. You're going to be balanced.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I do that to this day. So when I first became mayor, the staff would take out my workout. And I'd say, did I have a workout in there? And to be clear, this isn't about physically looking good. It's as much cathartic for your mental health, for the serotonin, right? To get rid of the cortisol in your body, the stress hormones. So I said, and they said, well, yeah, it was just a workout. I said, well, why would you do that? Well, you're not going to have enough energy to get through this day. And I had to explain, for them, it was the exact opposite. I go, working out doesn't take energy. It gives you energy.
That's what I tell everybody. And I even told the person who was here before it, you have to work out. Oh, but I'm tired. Exactly. That's why it's like twice as much.
And you could tell you look great. You could tell you're very fit. You work out.
That's why we're never tired.
Yeah. But it's true, though. That's how I plan. I first put in my personal time. Then we book. I don't care if the Pope is coming to town or Bill Gates is coming to town. I got to work around my workout. I don't miss and when I travel, I work out. And it's as much mental as it is physical. And my kids, I got them all into the gym when they were young as part of their lifestyle. So I go, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. And the hardest part of working out is just getting there. Once you get there, the rest is easy. It's just mentally getting there when it's cold or you don't feel like working out.
So back to the story. You got your weekly plan sorted out. And how did you continue your career as an entrepreneur?
I had an opportunity to join another franchise. It was a non-alcoholic club for teenagers. And I heard of a franchise, and the long story short was I opened up the franchise in St. Catharines right when I was finishing university. And I ran that for several years. And then eventually I got a liquor license and I turned it into a dance club. So I did that for 6 years in St. Catharines. So I've always had different businesses. And then at one point I did take a job. In 1994-95, I ran the Ontario Winter Games. I was a general manager of the Ontario Winter Games. They were held in the Niagara region, and it was for all Ontario. And a lot of these athletes would go on to the Canada Games and then to the Commonwealth Games and to the Olympics. So, and it was a great experience. But what I loved about that, I was always an entrepreneur. I had to do everything myself. Everything had to count. You never wasted time or money. Well, now I had a team behind me. I had lawyers, we had engineers, we had accountants, and I loved the feel of City Hall.
And you had the budget.
And I had a budget. And I loved the feeling of being part of a team. And I was one member of this team. So that was a really great experience. Then when the games, I thought if I really impress them, they'll want to hire me to work for the city. Well, in 1995, the market was bad. Industry was shutting down. There was nothing really exciting going on in Niagara. It was before the casinos. And I pitched them. I realized there was no jobs available. I will handle all your advertising. I will handle like for buses, bus shelters, rink boards at arenas, the fences at the ball diamonds. I said, I'll make a commission of what I sell. So it won't cost you 10 cents. I will work 100% on commission. I won't get benefits. I will eat what I sell. How's that sound? And they turned it down. And I thought, they turned it down. They wouldn't hire me. The surplus from the Ontario Winter Games, the waterfall in front of City Hall?
Yeah.
That was built from the funds from the surplus from the Ontario Winter Games in 1995. We handed $100,000+ back to the city. That was one of the things that they built with the money. So it's so funny, full circle, all these years later, I come back, I'm the mayor of the city. I started out as a city councilor. Then I made a decision to run for mayor along with a big team that helped me get elected. And that just helped me realize being good at something or successful, it's not enough. So I had to bounce off of this. Now what am I going to do? I ended up starting a bakery distribution business. I supplied sweet goods to the major retailers in Ontario. And we imported, exported, and everyone says, like, what brand, what things, what kind of sweets? Pies, donuts, cakes, fudge, candies, as they would say, from your lips to your hips. That's what I used to sell. So I did that. I worked with all the Walmarts, all the major retailers in Ontario. And so that's what I did. And then at a point when I felt comfortable enough, then I made the leap and I decided to run for mayor. I sold my business.
Wow, 15 years later after the games, right?
Yeah, that would
1994, 95 to 2010.
Yes. So I ran for city council in 2003.
Oh, okay. So first you were a city councilor for 7 years?
Which is part-time, yes.
6 or 7 years.
7 years.
And then you became the mayor.
Then I became...
How was it running for mayor? What goes behind the scenes?
I'll take a step back first. So again, one of my mentors said to me, and this is a guy who runs a huge telecom company in the U.S. In fact, their spokesperson for a period of time was Donald Trump.
Oh.
Yeah, but this is a long time ago. He was their spokesperson. Yeah. So I said to this guy, Mike, I said, Mike, sum it up for me. And this is a thing that I like to do. And I like to say, I'll meet someone who's successful at anything. I don't care what it is. A great babysitter, a great podcaster, a great carpenter, a great anything. And I go, sum it up for me. Don't make me read the book. Sum it up. And I go, what's the advice? What did you learn? And for example, my babysitter used to babysit my kids. She said, don't do everything for your kids because then you're going to have lazy, messy adults. And I was like, really? Yes. Make them make their own bed. Make them put their own clothes away. And I was like, interesting. So my kids, even though when they're little, they make the bed, it's a mess. I made them make it. I'll go fix it up later. And then now they know, because that's the first thing everyone should do is make your bed in the morning. It's how you start your day. You accomplished one simple thing, but you do it every day and you come back to a bed that looks nice. So it started with that kind of approach. So I said to my mentor, sum it up for me, Mike. And he goes, and this guy is personal friends with Anthony Robbins and a lot of the major motivational speakers around the world. And he goes, watch what everyone is doing and then do the opposite.
Oh.
And then I thought back all the lessons I learned about edification, how many things working out gives energy, doesn't take it. And I thought so many things were the opposite. The information's out there. You just got to go find a mentor to give it to you, someone with wisdom. And I thought, he goes, 97% of the people don't end up where they want to be. He goes, and if you think you take comfort in following a crowd, he goes, most of them aren't going where they want to go. He goes, do the opposite. There's a much better chance you'll land where you need to be. So if you feel like a bit of an outcast of what you're doing, you're exactly where you need to be. So when I ran for city council, so I put a team together of people who never knew each other, old, young.
Yeah. Where did you find these people?
Just in the community. People who crossed my path who I was impressed. They just had this fire in their belly. Like you have that fire in your belly.
Yeah.
So I would say to you, Alvin, would you help me on my campaign? It's volunteer. It's not a lot of work, but would you?
Once I win, I'll give you this job.
I'll support you. Yeah, no, but I would say, hey, listen, we're lifetime friends. And how can I help you now? We help each other like a hand in glove, right? We work together. One hand washes the other. So we looked at the lineup. There's 30 plus people running. And city council went from 12 to 8. So 4 incumbents are going to lose their position. And there's 31 altogether running. And I'm trying to crack this lineup. So what does everyone naturally do? They look at the last place person and say, how many votes did they get? We have to beat them. So again, I thought back to Mike. I said, no, we have to be different, do the opposite. Who's the top place person? And that's what we did. How many votes did that person get? That's who we're beating. So everyone looked at me like, are you crazy? Nobody knows who you are. You're a no-name. you're going to go to the top. It takes sometimes people multiple times to even get elected. So I had all my group of people, and I said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to be number one in the polls, blah, 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 blah. If you don't believe that, or you can't get your head wrapped around that, that's okay. I'm going to ask you to lead my campaign. I need believers. I don't need dead weight in the canoe. Everyone's paddling the boat, and we all believe where we're going. So some people never came back. So now we had our team, and then every single decision we had, all right, so I'll give you an example. Billboards, we should do billboards. Oh no, only mayoral candidates do billboards. I said, well then we do billboards, but they're more expensive. I said, then we'll raise more money. What else? Okay, we're gonna do brochures. I said, why are we doing brochures? Because everyone does brochures. Then we don't do brochures. Well, then what are we gonna do? And I think sometimes they thought it was crazy. I said, I was taking advice to heart. I said, well, if everyone does brochures, does anyone read them? Do you read them? Well, they look at the pictures, the captions, but do they read? How can you read brochures of 30 people and make a good decision? Nobody's going to do that. So we did everything, every single decision we made like that to stand out. So come election night, the outcome, we came in first place by a significant margin.
Nah.
And then the next election, we did the same thing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Did the same thing.
So how long does a candidate prepare and for the election and then runs for the election?
Probably you start planning the year before with just
1 year.
Yeah, but it's only picking a few people, a general am I going to run? Am I not going to run? Is your family going to support you? Or are they going to say, no, I don't have time? Like, just to make sure, what's your plan? Why are you running? Don't just run to run. Why? First identify the problem before, and then come up with a plan to fix it. So
when does it really start?
January. I was on those front steps of City Hall with my kids. They were all really little back then, and my wife, and I announced my candidacy. And
when are the elections?
Election. Well, at that time it was October.
Oh, wow.
It's typically in the fall.
It's 10 months.
Yeah, but the real campaigning really kicks in September, October. Those 2 months are very busy. Up until then, you're going door to door on Saturdays. You're at markets. You're shaking hands. You're meeting people. Let them get a feel for who you are. And that's how it started. Familiarity, building your team, getting sign locations. I was known as the sign candidate because we had so many sign locations. Like, we went over the top with sign locations. Again, I wanted to make a mark. People are like, who is this guy? I did things like, so I owned a bakery business, so I had big trucks, like 5-ton straight trucks. And I thought about it. And every decision, I found another guy who owned a trucking company. I said, could I get one of your trailers parked out on one of the major streets? And so we worked out a deal. He got a tax receipt for that. And then one of my billboards was coming down early. So I had the billboard now. It was like 4 or 5 panels. We screwed it to the side of the truck and parked it on a major street. And people were going, like, who is this guy? Who is he? And people would say to me, it seems like you really want this. And I said, I do. And it became a topic of discussion. People are, who's this guy? And if people are talking about you, they're thinking about you, there's a better chance they're going to vote for your support. Yeah. And so the results turned out great. And I had the best team. Everyone worked so hard. And I always say, you guys ran such a campaign, you could have got a monkey elected. And they said, well, we did. We kind of did. So that's how it led me to the mayor's office.
I know we don't have so much time, so let's see. I want to talk about time management now because you have so many commitments. But I also want to talk about challenges and frustrations.
I'll talk about challenges. And again, it's always going to tie into a mentor. I was at the 100th Grey Cup Canadian Football Championship at the Rogers Centre. And I was there with the mayor of Milton. The mayor of Milton, Gordon Krantz. He is currently the longest serving mayor in Canadian history. I think he's 43 years now as mayor. Incredible. Used to be Hazel McCallion in Mississauga. She was 38 years. Well, he's bypassed her. And great guy. And I said, so mayor, sum it up for me. And he said, all right.
I'm going to secret to becoming a king in Canada.
I figured I don't need to make all the mistakes. And again, I want to be clear.
Yeah.
Never fear failure. Failure is a part of success. It's not the opposite. It's a part. And he or she who fails the most, learns the most, picks up the most lessons, gathers the most wisdom, and will be the most successful. So it is a valuable part. But what I tell my kids, failure is important. I said, but if you do the same mistake twice, now you're just an idiot.
Yeah.
Right? Because the universe will teach you over and over again until you learn your lesson. Then you get to move on to the next lesson. So I'm with Gordon and he says, well, two things. Number one, get in with the youth. I'm on my third generation of supporters now because he's been around so long. Get with the youth, invite them to City Hall, engage them, because most people have voter apathy. They don't even know who the politicians are. They feel that you can't fight City Hall. It's this ivory tower, don't waste your time. And he goes, connect with them. So I took it to another level. I went to every single elementary school from grades 4 to 8. I'd go in the gymnasium and I put together a 40-minute, really fun, interactive presentation that the kids ate up. I taught them what democracy is. We talked about the different leaders. We talked about what we do, and we talk about poop in the pipes. The kids all laugh, and we talked about consensus, and we talked about mediating, but I do it in fun stories. The kids loved it. Today now, I've been around long enough. Those kids are all they're in their careers now. Those people that were elementary students are now working, and voting, and they know who I am. They feel connected to me. A lot of these kids have only known me as the mayor. And the second thing he said to me is, Jim, sometimes you're gonna have to give bad news. He goes, and I'm like, yeah, well, how do you handle that? I hate giving bad news. I'm a pleaser. I like to please people. I like to solve the problems. And sometimes you can't help them for whatever reason. And he said, you ask them, do you want the truth or do you want me to tell you what you want to hear? And they always say, I want the truth. Then you give them the truth, which is the bad news. And he goes, and they usually thank you for being honest. Finally, an honest politician. The first time I said it, it felt so weird. It wasn't my words. And I said, well, do you want the truth or do you want me to tell you what you want to hear? And it was exactly the way he said. And they said, thank you for your honesty. I really appreciate that. And that was one of the things that I realized. You got to be honest with people. Don't sugarcoat it. Tell them the way it is. Never give up. I'm a dog with a bone. I just won't stop. And I'll give you an example. You want to know what a failure?
Yeah.
So we wanted to get the GO train. We realized how important to have the commuter train from Toronto come to Niagara. We knew, and I, along with the mayor of St. Catharines at the time, convinced regional council, because I said to him, you know what I noticed? I sit back sometimes and I just watch. This isn't working. We go every year to the province with 10 asks, 10 priorities, and if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. And we end up getting none of the 10. I said, why don't we instead try something different? Do the opposite of what everyone else does and go with one priority. It's kind of like sharpening the tip of the point so it'll penetrate the armor. So we got the region to agree, and we decided that would be GO train. So we went in, we pitched, we put a business case together, we did everything. And no matter what we did, the Minister of Transportation said to me and the other mayor, and we're all lined up in a big table all the way down, all of his staff, all of our staff, long table. And he says, Mayor, I've got to give you the news. He said, you're not going to.
You want the truth? Or?
Good one. Touche. And he said, I'm going to give you the news. You're not going to get the GO train. And at this point, I could get upset, debate, argue. And I just said, well, Minister, I appreciate your opinion. So I hear him acknowledge it. It's your truth. It's not my truth. And I said, I have a feeling you're going to end up announcing it. And I said, but thank you for that. And I appreciate everyone's hard work on this. So I said, do you think we can go do a picture? So we all went at the end of the room in front of the fireplace, and we all started did the picture. We're all posed, all of us, probably about 20 of us. And I said, can we all do a thumbs up? And he said, sure. We did a thumbs up. And I said, remember this picture, Minister. 2 years later, almost to the day, he's announcing it in Niagara, the GO train. And so when he got out of provincial politics, he came to see me. And he said, do you remember the Niagara Ontario Economic Summit was in Niagara at White Oaks? And I said, yes. Remember you just didn't accept my answer and you met with the premier afterwards? And I said, yes. He goes, and we had our meeting? I go, yeah, because I was a little bit upset that you were in the meeting because you're Mr. Negative. I didn't want you in the meeting. I wanted just the premier. So he goes, yes, so it was me, our CAO, our Chief Administrative Officer, our Head of Economic Development, the Premier with her staff, and the Minister. So we're in the room, and then after, he goes, what you don't know is after that meeting, the Premier said to me, Minister, what are we going to do? And he goes, oh, Premier, this mayor's never going to go away. He won't quit. He goes, I think we just have to give him the go. I said, is that a true story? He goes, yes. He goes, I couldn't take it anymore. And it's like, if I do this to your forehead, it doesn't hurt at all. But after a few hours, you're going to beg me to stop. Stop with that hammer, right? And it was that exactly. Rock is harder than water. But why is it that the water wears away the rock and has carved out the entire gorge and carved out the falls, carved out the Grand Canyon? Why? Because rock is the water is persistent. It keeps running, and eventually the rock gives way to the water, the softer water. And same with this, the stronger will. As long as you don't quit, you only lose once you quit. And I'm telling you, you can apply this to anything in life. And there's example from Michael Jordan in basketball, Colonel Sanders with Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC. There's example after example after example of people. The only thing they did was they didn't quit. And that's my message to anybody. You just don't quit with whatever you're doing. I'll give you one more quick example of a failure. Nick Wallenda, the famous tightrope walker, the Wallendas have done this all over the world, in Europe especially. And he had a dream. He came to see me one day with HBO behind him. I've always dreamt since I was a little boy to walk out on a tightrope across the Canadian Horseshoe Falls. It's never been done in history. Would you help me with my dream? And I bought into his dream. Always tell people your dreams, because once they buy into your dream, they become exactly. And it's how apropos. And so he said, so we started the process. And I'm telling you, we got shut. Everyone said no. The Minister of Tourism, no. The Niagara Parks Commission, no. The City of Niagara Falls, New York, no. Fire Department, no. But we persisted. We wouldn't stop. So finally, the governor of New York State gave us 1 year to get it done. He approved it on their side. We had 1 year to get it done. And I'll just cut to two quick pieces of this. The one was, I had the premier here. I was explaining, and the premier said, well, how much money are they asking for? I said, no money. Well, and he said, this sounds like something of a no-brainer. I said, I think so too. So eventually, and I'll save the story for another time, but we got everybody on side to agree to this. And now the event, we pulled it off hugely successful. We had 150,000 people in person. It worked like a charm. Every major media in the world were here. We had 1 billion people view it in a 24-hour period. It was the biggest event on the planet that day. We pulled it off. We pulled off almost a miracle. We broke history. And so jumping ahead, I'm with the congressman from New York State. And he said, and we're being interviewed about, how did you guys pull this off? You changed history with what you did. And so, and I don't think much of it because I never look back. I always look forward. I don't care, like, yeah, that's done. What are we doing next? Because I don't care about that. That you can, whatever. Someone else can take credit or enjoy that. We're going forward. So anyway, he said, well, I was sitting with the governor of New York, Governor Cuomo at the time, and Senator Mazier, a great guy. And he's sitting there and he said, the governor said, Senator, I'm not going to allow this. I've got 9 of my attorneys. They're all telling me it's a really bad idea. I'm not going to allow it. He said, Governor, let the Canadians take the fall on this one. He said, the Canadians will never get this approved. Don't worry about it. You didn't think we could do it? He said, nope. And I said, isn't that funny? Because my attitude was, well, if the Americans can get it approved, we can get it approved. You can pull anything off as long as you don't give up. And as long as you put a good team together, start with the plan your work, and then work your plan.
Great. What are the main challenges for you as a mayor of a place like Niagara Falls? I just noticed we came here several times, and in like last year, I think 2 or 3 times. And I noticed that this time in January, the city is dead.
Yeah.
But in the summer, it's crowded with millions of people coming.
We're so famous, and I've been all over China and India and Korea, Dubai, like lots of interesting places where some places, like maybe they never heard of Niagara Falls. It's never happened. They're all like, oh, Niagara Falls, oh, Niagara, oh, one day before I die, or I've seen videos. And I always say, that's like saying I saw a video or a picture of a good steak versus biting into one. I go, it's a very different experience. I said, you need to experience the mist at your face, the full crest rainbow, and feel the roar of the falls, and a gift from God. This is nature. This is not a man-made thing. This is a gift. You need to come and experience where 20% of the world's fresh water flows, where the ice age, the melting, created the water to carve out this. I go, it's a gift. You need to come and experience. It's magical. And when people come, they're so excited to come here. 14 million people, in fact, come here. So you identified a challenge. The wintertime, we're very busy when the weather's good. When the weather's not so good, it's not so busy. Well, we started 30 plus years ago, 40 years ago, the Winter Festival of Lights. We put out 3 million lights, 75 animated displays, and now we get an extra 1 to 2 million people in the wintertime to come here that didn't come otherwise. We ran a big New Year's Eve show in Niagara Falls, the biggest in Canada right up until COVID. So it's an interesting place because we're only a city of 100,000, but we fight way above our weight when you get 14 million people. There's no city quite like it. And what's neat about it is for students, there's always jobs. No one ever has to worry about finding a summer job. The other thing of interest is when you say I'm from Niagara Falls, you're finished your explanation. You don't have to say anything else. I've been in China with people from Toronto who were blown away. People in China never heard of Toronto. And then they had to say, we're near Niagara Falls. And they go, oh, okay. And I'm like, remember that. You might be the center of the universe in Canada, but not in the world. So the main challenge is making sure that tourism is not a seasonal industry because we have 40,000 people that work in tourism, that it becomes a career opportunity year round. And now with the advent of gaming, tourism is maturing over the years. At one time, we used to say after September, we roll up the sidewalks and close up shop. Well, now it's year round. And the other thing I'll tell people is the four phases of Niagara. There's the summer when it's beautiful and warm, then the fall when all the leaves are red and yellow and orange and brown, and then Christmas and winter when there's snow and the mist freezes and the buildings and the trees get covered. It's like a winter wonderland. Then the spring, we're full of blossoms and we're full of beautiful flowers and whatnot. So I guess the message is, how do we sell Niagara Falls to be a year-round destination? How do you take it to the next level? How do you build and make it a better place and take advantage of all the amenities like the 200 wineries we have and the amazing beaches along Lake Erie? And because what we say is a destination needs stickiness. So once you're done seeing the falls, what keeps you here? That's when you sell all the other amenities that we have, where you go, you know what? I'm going to plan a week here. There's so much to do. So I'd say that's probably one of the biggest challenges is making it year-round.
You explained very well how you tell the truth, how you give bad news, but how do you deal with hatred? Because you are in a position of leadership where you're so exposed. I know that you even got sued a few years ago, and people are always criticizing the mayor.
Always.
How do you deal with that?
So nobody likes to be hated or disliked. Nobody wants that. But in life, again, one of the things I learned from one of my mentors is the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. In life, pretty much everything falls into 80-20. 80% of your problems will come from 20% of the people. 80% of the productivity will come from 20% of the people. 80% of your problems and complaints will be 20% of the people. And I'm okay with that because we always say it's okay to disagree. It's not okay to disrespect. And during COVID especially, because some people unfortunately deal with serious mental health problems and they'll take it out on whoever's the highest profile person in their sight lines. And unfortunately, sometimes it's me.
Yeah, and we saw people trying to kill Trump.
Oh yeah. They try to kill Trump. They try to kill the Pope. Yeah. They killed John Lennon. Why do people?
Because they are the reason why I'm so unhappy.
Exactly. They don't look inward to grow as a person. They'd rather look outward and blame someone else. And unfortunately, that approach, you'll never grow as a person. You have to own it. I say in life with my kids, own it. There's consequences for good things. There's consequences for bad things. You need to own it. The first thing you do is own it. If you made a mistake, it's okay. Own it, apologize, and correct it. But if you put it under the rug, it doesn't. Yeah. So
back to the story, pandemic.
So the pandemic comes and people are just being unreasonable, mean. It brought out the worst in people. And I'm going to say globally, it brought out the worst in people. And again, you want to know what's inside? Someone squeeze them, and whatever's inside comes out. Well, they felt the pressure of COVID, the pressure of everything, being cooped up in your house and whatnot, it came out. And people were nasty. And now you've got social media, where there's no social media police. You can say pretty much anything you want. And it's very difficult to have any kind of repercussions. So people would say nasty things, aggressive things. We had death threats, everything. So I just thought, no more of this, because I don't like bullies, people who bully. And I believe that you have to stand up, because my mom said a long time ago, you stand for something or you fall for anything. And so we started something called the neutral zone on social media, where we said, there's no targets. If you've got legitimate criticism, that's perfectly fine, because complain, criticize, try to make it constructive. but don't cross the line into that hate mode, that mode of being evil, because you're not going to do that. So I would start, and I put it out on social media. I announced it to the media at a press release. I've had a number of other mayors across Canada ask, can I borrow this? I said, this isn't for me. This is for anyone who wants it. And I adhered to it. So some people make comments on social media. And again, if it's a criticism, I'm okay with that. Especially if it's legitimate, no problem. But if you cross that line,
What did you do?
then the first thing I do is I delete them and I block them. And if they do something like that where they're threatening, I call the police.
Yeah.
And I won't hesitate to do that.
Did you ever have any encounter, like a physical encounter with someone who was a little bit out of line?
I had that happen. Somebody who was, maybe they had a few drinks, a little bit mentally unstable. And it's funny, during full moons, sounds crazy, but it's true. We get an increased amount of those kind of activities at City Hall, emergency rooms, police departments will tell you. We're mostly made out of water, and the moon draws tides, ocean tides, and anything water. So it has an impact on people. And some people are on the verge anyway, add a little bit of stress. They do things they maybe wouldn't have otherwise done. So the first thing I try to do, there's a thing called feel, felt, found. One of my mentors taught me.
Or what is it?
Feel, felt, found. And say you came to me with a problem, and I'd say, Elton say, I'm really upset, property taxes. I think they went up too high, and it doesn't make sense to me. I can't afford them anymore. And I'd say, I know how you would feel. And probably if I was in your shoes, I would have felt the same way. But once I explained to people, what I found was they were understanding and accepting of what we did. And I'd say, the majority of our money goes to wages, and we have collective agreements that we have to honor. And inflation's at 3%. So we're going to be at around 3% because if you're not, you're losing. So you have to cut something, cut services. Don't snowplow as much. Don't have the ball diamonds and arenas open as much. Once you start to explain, they understand. And I say, so it's not as bad as maybe what you think. And I try to explain. So feel, felt, found is a good way to describe it. So I try to, but then if it escalates beyond that to a point, I don't hesitate. I will call the police in 2 seconds. I will not wait. I won't allow anyone to intimidate that. You can't. And you can't worry about that. You can't be up at night worrying about things like that. You accept it. It's part of the job.
No. And you had you faced a personal challenge, health challenge, a few years ago. You want to talk about that?
I developed cancer. I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I was feeling sick for over a year, and I didn't know what it was. I was going for tests and never, ever thought it would be cancer. But I had some stressful things going on in my life, including my marriage, and my wife and I separated, and it was a stressful time. I had young kids, I've got a job that I put in as many hours as I can physically do, and I'll climb any mountain. Like there's no mountain I won't tackle for my city. Like I will go down, fight for my city. And so maybe sometimes I emptied the gas tank a little too much, and I didn't put enough in you. There's a saying, brush the teeth you want to keep, and I got to remember, you got to focus and always, so in your calendar, put family time in too, like put date time in, like you got to remember that too, so anyway, I got really sick. And, I lost 60 pounds. And of course, chemo was horrible. It wasn't pretty. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But I'm going to tell you something, though. I did a lot of growth during that time. I spent a lot of time sitting on my couch, dealing with it. First, I was like, you feel a little sorry for yourself. Why me? What did I do to deserve this? Then you think.
So what did you learn?
Number one,
from
why not me? Well, what's special about me? Nothing. And why shouldn't I? And then I spun it around. Again, I thought back to all my mentors. What have I learned? Okay, I got to apply it here. And I thought, I stopped seeing it as a curse. People say, oh, I'm so sorry. Or one of my brothers bought me a shirt that said F cancer, for the profanity F cancer. And I thought, no, I made a decision at one point. So I said to my brother, thank you for the shirt. I know your heart's in the right place and you mean well. But I can't wear this because what you think about comes about. What you fight will consume you. What you fight gets your energy. I'm not giving cancer my energy. I'm getting healthier. That's where my energy is going to be. I'm putting 100% of my energy. And I said to my family members, no more crying, no more crying. I don't want tears, pity parties. And like my mom's like, well, I'm allowed to. And I said, you're not allowed to, Mom, not in front of me. If you want to do it on your own, and I recommend you don't do it at all because People don't realize, and the more you get plugged into the universe, thoughts and words have energy. It's been measured. They have energy. They have impact on outcome. That's why what you think about will come about. So be careful of your thoughts, because what you target on is where you're going. When you drive, where you look to the ditch, you will end up in the ditch. That's why you need to focus on where you're going. And I learned when I was doing my driver's education when I was 16, and people would back up and they'd look in the mirror and he'd say, when you drive forward, how do you look in a mirror? And they go, no, I look through the window. They said, turn around then and look through your back window. Look, where you look is where you drive. Now, today we have cameras. I know it doesn't apply as much, but when you think about the lessons, so I decided it's not a curse, it's a blessing. People are going, what do you mean it's a blessing? I said, you know what cancer taught me? To be more great than I'm a grateful person. Be grateful that I got a roof over my head. There's food in my fridge. I've got healthy kids. My family loves me. I have a job I love with a purpose. I started thinking about all the things I'm grateful for. And I thought, no, you know what this did? It made me closer to my family and more grateful that we only have so much time. Time is finite. So we live as if we're not dying. Every one of us are going to die. We only have a certain amount of time. What are you going to do with the sand in the bottle? Use it to do good things. So it changed my whole outlook and my attitude. And now people call me when they have cancer and they want to ask me. And here's the first thing they said to me, and they told me, how are you this way? I go, I'm okay here. I'll get myself, but you got to help me physically. And so I know I can't help anyone physically, but I can help mentally, because every cell in your body takes its orders from your brain. That's why you need to will the outcome you're looking for. And it's unrelenting focus on where you want to go. And you will literally bend the will of others to your will. And the universe is sitting there, and sounds like the craziest thing I've taught my kids to say to the universe: be thankful for what you're going to get and act as if you already have it, and you will get it. What you think about comes about. And I can't say that enough. It's like a dream. If you can think about it, it will come about. So everything from my cancer battle made me closer to my family. It made me more appreciative of my health, putting healthy things in your body, try to avoid sugars, and be there for everyone else going through their battle. So it turned out my sister last year had breast cancer. She went through her own. My nephew had testicular cancer. So and again, now people call on me, and I figure this is part of why did I go through it? So I could help other people on their journeys. And I could relate to what they're going through and communicate. And also, why not me? Why not me? So I expect there to be challenges. I expect there to be obstacles. So it doesn't get me down. I know they're there. I just got to figure out where they are and get around them or over them or under them or through them. But I don't ever stop thinking of where I intend to go and where the target is. That's the part once I get it in my head, I'm OCD about it. I can't let it go. That's the target, and that's where I'm going. And if my dying, crawling, I'll die reaching for the target. And that's my way. It's like, you better shoot me, because I'm not stopping.
I love it. You mentioned dreams. So are you living the Canadian dream? And what are your next goals in life? What is the ultimate plan in your life?
So I'd say, both of my grandfathers were World War I veterans in Europe. They were both prisoners of war. They had a tough life. They came here with nothing, started their lives. And I remember my one grandfather always saying to me, I said, I want to be like you. I want to go fight in a war. And he got so upset with me. No, you do not. He goes, I used my hands so my family could use their heads. He goes, you use your head. And I didn't understand that at first. And I realized, think your way through things, right? We're not like an animal. Like, we've got logic and we've got these abilities. Utilize them. As the grandson of immigrants, I'm sure they, in their wildest dreams, couldn't have dreamed that their grandson would be the mayor of the city of Niagara Falls. But it makes me feel good that their sacrifices and suffering weren't wasted, that you wanted for a better life. And I want the people coming behind me to have a better life. So when I meet and greet new Canadians, and I said, something drew you here, leave it better. Like my mom always said, leave it better than when you got here, so that the next person will want to come too. And I put that challenge to everybody that comes to Canada. This is the greatest country in the world. You can have anything you want. You can be anything you want. There is no better place to be of freedom for your religion, your customs, your foods, your beliefs, whatever it is. You can be anything you want to be. just make sure you leave it better than when you got here. That's your obligation for the people coming behind you. The same thing the people that came ahead of you had. So for me, my next goals, I keep raising the bar and picking new targets for the city. And I'm working on some big things with our airport and some other really lofty goals. And then probably when I'm done, because I don't want to be the mayor forever, I really don't. When my ideas, my goals have been achieved, I'd love to hand the baton to the next person that'll run with things. And I'll probably go back private sector. I'll probably go back in the entrepreneurial world. I'll always want to mentor people because I love helping. It's in my blood to serve people, to help you shovel your driveway, rake it, whatever it is you need.
Okay, so to finish off, what would you like to say to the young Canadian?
If money and time and failure were not issues, what would you be doing right now? That's then what you should be doing. Because failure is only lessons, and you will get to your objective, or it'll lead you to a better objective. So that's number one. Number two, build your network. That's the most valuable thing. Whoever has the biggest net catches the most fish. You can't have a big enough network. And it's so easy today with devices today. It's so easy to stay in touch and have a big network where most problems I can solve with a quick phone call or text or email because they're in my database. So if you do that and then seek out good ideas, better mousetraps, how can you identify a problem and come up with a solution? And don't give up. When you give up, that's when you lost. You don't give up. You keep trying. You keep trying. And an example after example of guys, like I said, like Michael Jordan, who was cut from his high school basketball team, and yet he persevered. And eventually he became arguably the greatest basketball player of all time. And negative thoughts I think of as like weeds in a garden. A garden, if you don't do anything, the weeds will grow on their own. Whether you water them or not, they will grow. But you have to deliberately plant what you want to grow. If you want corn, and if you want tomatoes, if you want potatoes and cucumbers, you have to plant them and weed them constantly because the weeds, the negative thoughts will creep in. So it's not a one-time thing. It's like working out. It's like eating. It's like sleeping. It's not a one-time and done. It's a continuous, so you do it every day and eventually it becomes habitual. Eventually you won't skip the gym because you'll feel guilty. Eventually you'll make good choices in everything you do. Eventually you'll just say good things about other people. You'll edify them. You'll pump their tires. And then you know what happens? They go away and they say nice things about you because they go, is that what he said about me? Really? And if you follow that path, I promise you, you will be wildly successful in whatever endeavor you choose. It's not that complicated.
Great. Mayor, you have so much charisma.
Well, I got something.
I know now why you got ripped. How many times did you get re-elected? 3?
As mayor, I'm in my 4th term.
So 3 times re-elected.
Yeah, 3 times reelected.
Yeah, no wonder. No, it's such a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you for an opportunity. I appreciate
Appreciate it so much. And a shout out to Emily, who works with you at the City Hall,
Oh, yeah, she's great. Thank you, Emily.
for making this happen in such short notice. Thank you for your time. I don't know how you do so much because you're always everywhere. And now it's 5:50 p.m. and
Yep.
you still have another,
I have a 6 o'clock event I got to get to. Yeah,
you have a commitment. Is
Yep.
it dinner?
it's a dinner commitment.
Yeah.
So those aren't hard to do. I just have to eat and talk.
First time we met, it was at a big event at night.
Yep.
And you were everywhere, always in a good mood. I remember I pulled you out of the restaurant to introduce you to the lady who was working, checking codes.
Yes.
You were happy to come with me just because she wanted to shake hands.
I love when they're like a blessing, like they're a breath of fresh air versus arrogance. And when you meet them and they're not what you expect, it's so disappointing. I don't ever want to disappoint someone. I don't ever want them to say, oh, that's not what I expected. I would rather impress and show them, the love and the interest. And I don't know, I think that's in common. We're all connected. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all part of the same planet. Like, why wouldn't we just do that? And we're all going to leave this planet the way we came into it, with nothing. So why wouldn't you want your only thing you leave behind is your legacy. So why wouldn't you want your legacy to be, they made this place better, made me feel good about myself, encouraged me, motivated me, mentored me, whatever it is. So as long as you're trying to make things better, I think that's the key. And I'm motivated by making things better. I want to use up whatever gifts I may have as good energy, perseverance. That's probably all I got, really. Then I want to use all of them for good. I want to use everything I got for good. And I thank God every day that I got my health back, that I get to do an amazing job. I'm surrounded by amazing people. I get to meet people like you. And this is another way to springboard this message that'll encourage someone else. Like ripples in a pond, you will never know the impact that you truly had. You will never know. And I love the idea about do good. One of my friends said, do good and forget about it. Don't do good with an expectation of something in return. Just do good because that's what you should do. I believe in karma. I believe, again, what you put out comes back with interest. And so that's all I say. Just go out there and do something good. You'll feel better and you'll change lives.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank
All
you.
good. My pleasure.
I just want to say goodbye to everybody who has been watching this on YouTube or listening to it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Remember to like this episode, to share it with whoever you think will also benefit from listening to what the mayor had to tell us today.
We better wake them up first, though. Kind of got to wake them up first.
And remember to subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. I will see you on the next episode.